So, I enter the city. It welcomes me with its most merciless and bitter grimace. What I see before my eyes is not what I expected. Doomsday made it here, too, even if no one in the refugee camp knows it yet. Damn it. The city looks as bruised and battered by the catastrophe as the rest of us. It's a poster advertising an insurance company. The slogan is, "Tomorrow comes today." There's something familiar about this poster. I'd even swear that I actually remember it. For the first time since I woke up, I can say that I can remember something from my former life. Something hazy, related to this image. But what is it? It's a poster. There's some... What the hell is that old man trying to do with that enormous pair of bolt cutters? He can hardly get his hands around them. 3 people warming themselves by the fire. They stare into the flames, as if their thoughts were also burning in that rusty old drum.
Hello, friend. You look lost. Come over by the fire.
It's dying down, but maybe it'll last until curfew.
As long as those uniformed psychopaths don't decide to end our little get-together first, of course.
Hey, look! One of those magic bracelets from the camp. They say that place is a real hellhole. A kind of living death. So you've come back from the dead. Do they call you Lazarus?
Well, you could put it that way. You were saying something about a curfew. What time does it start exactly?
Well, it depends on the mood of the soldiers in this zone. But you know it's time to go home when they start taking their guns out of their holsters.
Today they're extremely jumpy. I don't think it'll be long before they start insulting people and hitting them with their rifle butts.
You guys are awfully hard on them. It's just their crude way of showing us affection.
Oh, shut up! In any case, you don't have to worry. That bracelet means you don't have to hide from them. You know that's one of the privileges that comes with it.
And you? Do you people have to hide?
We try to stay out of their way. The first rule is, be home before curfew. Anyone who isn't gets dragged off to refugee camp. That's one of the strictest laws the Great Wave imposed upon this city.
And do you know how things are elsewhere? Do you get news from outside?
I'm afraid not. With no communications or transportation, and with the army on every corner, we are totally cut off.
Who cares anyway? When you don't know from one day to the next if you're gonna be alive, there's no time to worry about what happens 100, 1,000, or 100,000 miles away.
I understand. Why are you afraid of the soldiers? I'd heard that things function better here.
I don't know where you heard that, friend, but whoever told you that was lying. Here, things are very ugly and getting uglier every day. Everything's in short supply: water, food, medicine.
We have a surplus of just 2 things: misery and violence. Life is cheap here, and getting cheaper all the time, especially since the army took over.
The army. I see. And what happened to the other authorities? The politicians? The laws?
Those are distant memories from the old world, my dear. Get them out of your head, because all that collapsed like a house of cards. Since the Great Wave, no one's got any plan, strategy. We're all adrift.
He's right. The most reliable thing we have left is what you see around the corner. Armed teenagers in uniform on the streets, on the rooftops, just as scared as we are, or more, and shooting anything that moves.
I think our common destiny is to finally die of starvation, of disease, or boredom. I don't know which of the 3 options I find the most cruel. Who knows? Maybe the most sensible thing is to organize a group excursion and break into Suicide Park.
Suicide Park? Don't call it that. It's not funny. That name's as stupid as that hospital they built in such a hurry next to it. It's crazy. The entire city is starving and sick, and the soldiers keep those medical facilities locked up like Fort Knox.
But what good is it having medical facilities if no one can use them? I don't understand.
No one does, friend, but that's the way it is. I don't know why anyone would want to go into that building, but I can assure you that they're not going to get treated for anything in there, not even for a miserable cold.
Besides, it's a real fortress. The person will be more likely to come out sick from an overdose of gunpowder and lead. You know how it is, dear. There's no cure for love or death. Hey, I like that last phrase. It would make a good opening line for a story.
Oh, will you shut up for once, Ramon? Don't pay any attention to him. In the old world, he earned his living writing stories, and he still thinks that all that waste paper might someday be useful after the Great Wave.
And in fact, it is. A good deal of that scrap paper is fueling this bonfire right now, dear. So I can consider my literary career to have been worthwhile.
Did you say Suicide Park? Someone in the camp told me about that place.
And the first dark stars come out to hang from the sky. We could sit and count them together, you and I.
When the sun departs from Suicide Park. Yes, I recognize the song. But what the hell is it? Is there really a place with that name?
Yes, it exists. After the Great Wave, and when things were starting to get really ugly here, the weakest among us eased their suffering with a bullet, by overdosing, or by jumping from high places. You know how it is. All those dark stars had a hard time finding a reason to go on living.
There was a terrible wave of suicides, and there still is.
The problem is at some point a problem arose. How should I put it? A serious logistical problem. Access to drugs and firearms became practically impossible. So the easiest thing was to grab a rope or a belt and go to Suicide Park after dark.
There was a time when it was hard to find a free branch anywhere in the park.
The suicides in the area multiplied at such a rate that the army closed down the park. They said for public health reasons.
For months, the only thing blooming in that park were the corpses of the hanged. The place became more like a theme park. Lots of fun for everyone.
I told you not to make jokes about that. Don't you have any respect for anything?
Of course not. That was one of the many things I lost in the Great Wave. And one of the things I missed the least, believe me.
Thanks for the chat.
Thanks for the company, friend.
Help me, please! Help me! Don't let them find me in the street after curfew. They'll take me to the refugee camp. Help me, please! But don't make any noise. There's a patrol just round the corner.
But what is it you need me to do?
It's almost curfew. I need a place to sleep. I need a place to hide, or they'll send me to the refugee camp. Don't you understand?
What is all this about a curfew?
At curfew, the soldiers want the streets cleared. And the way they see it, if you're out on the street after curfew, it means that you've got nowhere to go. You don't have a home. You don't belong here. And that makes you a rat. And so they take you to the refugee camp. I can't go to the camp. Understand? I can't go there.
You need a roof over your head, and you don't have anywhere to go.
I used to, but it doesn't exist anymore. I owned an apartment a few blocks from here. The block was badly damaged by the Great Wave, but it was still standing.
And what happened to your home?
This morning, we had to evacuate the area in a hurry. We ran out in the streets with whatever we had on. Apparently, the foundation was starting to crumble. And a few hours later, all that was left of my home was a pile of smoking rubble, with 40 years of memories buried beneath it. But I can't let them take me to the camp. I need to get into another house before the curfew. Please, help me.
Okay, give me those bolt cutters. I'll see what I can do.
This house was empty, but the army has sealed it off. If I can just get this padlock off before curfew, I'll be safe. I need to get in here. But please, don't make too much noise. If the soldiers find us, they won't hesitate to kill us.
Impossible. I'm sorry. I can't do anything with this.
I need to get in there. I need to get in.
I'm looking for a place. Something like a pharmaceutical warehouse. Would you know anything about that?
I don't really know. There's a small medical center just outside the city limits. I suppose you mean that, right? They built it in a hurry, just knocked it together after the Great Wave. No one really knows what it's for, but there are vehicles going in and out of the place all the time. Whatever they're doing in there, they're keeping it very secret. Not even my daughter would tell me what goes on inside.
Did you say your daughter?
Yes, my daughter. My little Uma. She works there as a nurse. I'm afraid she left me. I suppose she got tired of living with a frail, sick old man like me. Because one day she simply left the house, and I haven't seen her since. It's been months now. I think she was right to leave me. These times are hard enough. You don't want to burn yourself with someone like me.
I'm sorry. I can't help you.
Help me, please.
Judging from what remains of the stained glass windows and the murals, this pile of rubble must have been a place of worship before the Great Wave struck. Now it's one of the most badly damaged buildings in the area. There are hardly any walls still standing.
Send us a sign, Lord. We need a sign from you.
Hey, wait a minute. I know that voice.
Are we guilty of arousing your rage? Did we do it? Speak with your tongue of fire, Lord. Purge us with unrelenting justice. Send us a sign. Is this our doing? Are you punishing us for our arrogance? Unleash your thunderous voice, Lord. Release us from this intolerable uncertainty. Did we do it? Send us a sign.
I'm getting a strong impression that man's a fanatic and a little bit deranged, but his sermon made me curious. What could he mean by, "we did it"?
The ruins of the temple, the lion above the flames. We still have time.
A few parishioners listened to the words of the preacher, mesmerized, although I'm sure that, like me, they can't decipher the meaning of his mystical rants either.
Voice of your angels.
This enormous stone cross casts a giant shadow across the aisle of the church. Perhaps that wasn't the original intention, but the result is pretty gloomy and menacing. Southside Park. Would you believe it? This must be the famous suicide park I've been hearing so much about. Huh. The pun is as witty as it is macabre. Strange. The soil here seems darker and less packed than the soil around it. In fact, the mud in this part of the ground is a bit damp and mushy. My fingers even leave marks in it when I touch it. Good idea. I can try to remove the damp earth with these shards of glass. I've managed to excavate a little bit, but these shards of glass are too small and blunt. Maybe I need something bigger that cuts better to make a decent hole. A piece of wood with a handwritten sign, closed for public health reasons. Judging from the handwriting and the spelling mistake, I assume the author of the message was one of those animals in uniform.
Did we do it?
The only statue in this place still standing. It's Saint... what's his name? Patron saint of... who knows what. I'm afraid that if I ever was a believer, all that information has also been blanked.
Did we do it?
This column fragment must have fallen off one of the walls during the catastrophe. Now it's keeping the pedestal of the statue company.
Did we do it? Are
Let's
we
see.
the guilty ones?
If I wedge one of the ends of the plank under the statue's pedestal, the other part will rest directly on the base of the toppled column. The catastrophe caused a lot of damage to the statue's pedestal. The fact that the statue is still standing is a miracle.
We're waiting, Lord. Did we do it? Illuminate us. Send us a sign with your just and vengeful arm. Is this our fault? Listen! It's the very breath of God. The Lord has sent us his sign. And I was right. It is all our fault. We did it. And we have aroused his fury.
But what the hell's going on here?
Look, that's the sign. Forgive us, Lord. Forgive us. Repent, all ye sinners.
It's the atmospheric phenomenon I've been hearing so much about. That infernal sound coming from the crack in the sky. It's terrifying.
That is the sign. We did it. Forgive us, Lord. Forgive us. My children, God has spoken to us with his darkest voice. Haven't you heard him? But there's still time. All is not lost. We still have time. Salvation lies in the place where it all began, in the ruins, at the source. We must return to the ruins of the temple. We must return. We must.
Well, look at that. Next to this enormous hunk of glass, the colored glass shards I picked up earlier look ridiculous. I'd better get rid of them. I'll do this very carefully, so that the glass doesn't break in two. Perfect. The hole I've dug is big enough to get to the other side of the fence. You can smell these dead creatures from several yards away. I have no intention of picking up those rotten fish with my hands, to say nothing of putting them in my pocket. Good God. There are dozens, hundreds of corpses hanging from the branches. What could have drawn all these people here? What kind of pain? What kind of desperation brought them here? These are the corpses of ordinary people who were living their ordinary lives in their ordinary little worlds up to a very short time ago. Could any of them have imagined meeting an end like this back then? Forgotten and nameless, swaying in the breeze like marionettes. And all those savages in uniforms did was close the park. They didn't even bother to cut their bodies down from the trees. I'm afraid that tonight, there are too many dark stars to count in Suicide Park. This vegetation is so dense that all you can see are some flattened metal posts in there. There's no doubt that nature has taken over this corner of the city. So much so that I'm afraid that this is the end of my little stroll. Wherever I look, I see corpses hanging from these branches, some so recent that the shadows of their faces make it seem like they're following you with their gaze. So, let's see. Impossible. It's not that it's super heavy. It's that there's hardly any place to insert your fingers to lift this manhole cover. The crowbar fits perfectly into the hole in the manhole cover. Wait a minute. I'm not going to climb down any further. It's totally dark in there, and it would be crazy to go into these sewers without any light. Maybe with the help of the crowbar, I can get the subway sign off the wall. Damn it! I've managed to tear it down, but the subway sign is broken in two. It looks like there are some chiseled stone structures sticking out of the water. What are they? The remains of columns, perhaps? And what are they doing sunk here in the middle of nowhere? It seems like a small fragment of one of them is loose. As dead as that tree is, it still looks strong enough to tie the rope to. Before I go down, I'll leave the heavy stuff here, in case the rope doesn't support my weight. Underneath the surface, there must be many more of these stone things I see sticking out of the water. No doubt they're the remains of a structure that sank here. It seems like a small fragment of one of them is loose. Hello. I heard your sermon and...
Yeah, God has shown us his sign. He has finally spoken to all of us. With his thunderous voice, he has revealed the unknown. We did it. It's all our fault. We did it. But there's still time. All is not lost. There's still time to avoid it. The head of the lion above the flames holds the key to everything.
But what is it we did?
Time is the will of God. It is his heart and his hammer. The centuries and the ages belong solely to him. The celestial empire is a divine clock. Time rotates around God. Its hands are his angels and archangels. Now I see it all clearly. How could we have been so stupid? Our arrogance had enraged him. That's what we did.
This man is definitely crazy. Nothing he says makes any sense.
I beg you, leave my brother in peace. He's very upset.
We did what? I'm sorry, but I didn't understand a word you just said.
We sullied his name. We didn't know that each second is a drop of Christ's blood, and that only he can reign over the interval, over the infinite mysticism of the fragment. Only he can reign over time with his incandescent omnipotence, and we were unable to see it. And now he is enraged, and we're to blame. That's what we did.
I still don't understand what it is we did.
Each cycle is a fluorescent gust of God's will, don't you see? Can't you see it? He reigns over the days and the hours from the inscrutable luminescence of his dwelling place. And we are just instants that slip through his fingers. Time is his, and his alone. And we tried to wrest it from him. That's what we did.
But what is it we did?
Time is the will of God. It is his heart and his hammer. The centuries and the ages belong solely to him. The celestial empire is a divine clock. Time rotates around God. Its hands are his angels and archangels. Now I see it all clearly. How could we have been so stupid? Our arrogance had enraged him. That's what we did.
We did what?
We son and that only he can reign. And that...
What signs are you referring to?
The dark angels of God clamor madly through the open wound that is bleeding the kingdom of heaven dry. Haven't you heard? They were speaking with a thunderous voice. God is furious. That is his sign.
I suppose in his delirium, the man has mistaken that strange sound coming from the gash in the sky left by the great wave. A sign from the heavens. He's definitely lost his mind.
Please be so kind as to leave us in peace. Can't you see that my brother is very agitated?
I assume you're referring to the atmospheric phenomenon in the sky caused by the great wave.
No, no! It's the stench of human arrogance that made the gears of the gates of hell grind. And now they're opening up like a festering wound to swallow us all. Can it be that you haven't heard it? That is his sign.
Excuse me, but I don't think that was a divine sign.
We've lacerated the sacred skin of the shroud God enveloped us in. We've betrayed him. We've stabbed him with our infinite arrogance. And you can see the mark etched on the heavens. Through that gash, Lucifer has shouted our name from on high. Satan is calling each and every one of us by name. Can't you hear it? That is his sign.
Tell me, what is it that we can still prevent?
The wrath of God, the destruction of man. There's still time. We did it, but we still have time. The key is in the ruins of the temple. We have to find the ruins of the temple. Look for the head of the lion above the flames. Bring me the head of the lion above the flames while there's still time.
But this church is already in ruins. It hardly has any walls or a foundation left. You're already in the ruins of the temple.
No, you're mistaken. Bring me the head of the lion above the flames.
That's enough. Stop tormenting my brother. He's exhausted.
The head of the lion above the flames? That sounds absurd. It makes no sense. I think it's best that I leave you in peace.
Yes, leave my brother in peace.
There's still time. They bring me the...
A small piece of sculpted marble. It's the head of an animal above what looks like flames or an open fire. Could it be a lion's head? The head of the lion above the flames. I think this must be yours.
The head of the lion. The head of the lion above the flames. The ruins of the temple still exist. Salvation is still possible. We can prevent it. We can still prevent it. Don't you understand? The annihilation of time. The wrath of God for our arrogance. There's still time. I have to return to the ruins of the temple. I have to go back to the ruins of the temple.
Wait a minute! Whew. There's no question in my mind, this man is a complete lunatic.